It's 7:30 in the evening across India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Global, bringing you day's big stories from across India and the world. My colleague, Caroline Malone, is joining me from Washington, D.C. Caroline, good to see you.
Good morning, Shubhendu. It's 9 a.m. here in Washington, D.C. and 3 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, the U.S. Secretary of State visits the Middle East at a critical time. But first, the headlines.
In a swift response, Indian warship intercepts the hijacked merchant vessel in North Arabian Sea. Marine commandos undertake sanitization operation aboard. Israeli Defense Minister outlines post-war governance plan for Gaza. U.S. Secretary of State on his fourth visit to West Asia. EU chief heads to Lebanon. Tensions escalate on the Korean Peninsula. South Korea conducts live firing drills after North Korea fired artillery shells near a disputed maritime border. Indian Navy commandos have started a sanitization operation on board cargo ship MV Leela Norfolk immediately after arriving on the ship. The merchant vessel was hijacked yesterday and had sounded an alert, after which the Indian Navy sprung into action and diverted warship INS Chennai for the rescue operation. MV Leela was intercepted by INS Chennai at about 15:15 hours and was kept under continuous surveillance using maritime patrol aircraft, Predator MQ-9B and Integral Helos. Meanwhile, Yemen's Houthi rebels detonated an explosive-laden boat in the Red Sea, defying the United States' final warning against any such attacks. The blast failed to cause any damage or casualties. The U.S. military said the boat came within a couple of miles of merchant vessels and U.S. Navy ships operating in the area. The incident comes a day after 12 countries, including United States, the UK and Japan, issued a joint statement reiterating a call for an end to Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. And even as Israeli operation continues in Gaza, high-profile visits are taking place to the region. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on his fourth visit to West Asia, and EU Chief Joseph Borrell is heading to Lebanon. My colleague Caroline Malone is in Washington, gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Caroline, over to you.
Well, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken returns to the Middle East on Friday. He is expected to hold talks with Israeli leaders and Palestinian officials in the West Bank to try and increase humanitarian access to Gaza. Well, the U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller says Blinken will also visit several other countries in the region.
Turkey, Greece, Jordan, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Israel, the West Bank, and Egypt for meetings with foreign counterparts and others. The Secretary will focus on a number of critical issues on this trip. First, he will discuss immediate measures to increase substantially humanitarian assistance to Gaza. The United States has played a critical role in unlocking humanitarian assistance for the Palestinian people, but conditions remain extremely difficult. The Secretary will stress the imperative of expanding and sustaining safe access for humanitarian organizations to deliver food, water, medicine, as well as for commercial goods to enter all areas of Gaza.
Well, DD India's correspondent Trent Murray has more from Tel Aviv.
Yeah, well, this will be the fourth visit for Secretary Blinken to the region in the wake of October 7th, the fifth if you include his visit to Israel with President Biden in the days after that attack by Hamas. We know that there is a very large number of issues that he wants to discuss, both here, but with some of those other countries we heard there before, like Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Egypt. First and foremost is the situation in Gaza. We know America has been pushing for answers from Israel on when it will move away from its heavy warfare based on airstrikes and artillery strikes to something more targeted in order to try and prevent that civilian death toll continuing to mount. We know the issue of hostages will also be released, 129 of them still being held by Hamas militants within Gaza, including American citizens, and then some of these regional issues like the Red Sea, which we just heard about there, and also that situation in Lebanon. Tensions there remain very, very high. The Israeli army says it remains at its highest state of readiness along the northern border of Israel, effectively waiting and watching to see whether the Lebanon-based Hezbollah group will respond to that airstrike in Beirut earlier this week.
Well, as fighting between the Israeli army and Hezbollah intensifies over Israel's northern border, the European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell is visiting Lebanon on Friday. Borrell will spend the weekend in Beirut to discuss the situation at the Israeli-Lebanese border and explore ways to avoid regional escalation. Well, the visits come as Israel has outlined proposals for the future governance of Gaza once the conflict between Israel and Hamas is over. The Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said there would be limited Palestinian rule in the territory. Hamas would no longer control Gaza, and Israel would retain overall control of the security situation. He also said that the army would adopt a more targeted approach in the north and continue to pursue Hamas leaders in the south while working to free the remaining hostages. Well, elsewhere in the Middle East, Iran's president and commander-in-chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps vowed revenge during an address at the funeral for the victims of twin bombings. On Friday, Ibrahim Raisi addressed thousands of mourners who'd gathered in Kerman. Nearly 100 people were killed on Wednesday in the city near a memorial for top commander Qasem Soleimani, who was assassinated in Iraq in 2020 by a US drone. President Raisi said that enemies can see Iran's power.
Our enemies can see Iran's power, and the whole world knows its strength and capabilities. Our forces will decide on the place and time to take action. These deaths are the consequences of the defeats that have been inflicted on the Western powers and its regional supporters in recent years.
The Islamic State K Group has claimed responsibility for the twin blasts in the Iranian city of Kerman. In a statement posted on social media on Thursday, the terrorist Sunni Muslim group said that 2 IS members had detonated explosive belts in the crowd that had gathered at the cemetery in the southeastern Iranian city on Wednesday. Well, meanwhile, White House security spokesperson John Kirby said the United States is in no position to doubt the Islamic State's claim. But Kirby added the US had not seen any indication of a direct link between the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza and the attack in Iran on the anniversary of Soleimani's death.
We have seen the public credit now that ISIS-K has taken for the attack in Iran. We're certainly in no position to doubt that claim by ISIS-K. I haven't seen anything that indicates there's a direct link to what's going on in Gaza and with the attack in Iran on the anniversary of Soleimani's death. I haven't seen anything tangible that would tell me that there's a link there.
Well, in the unfolding Russia-Ukraine war, significant events have transpired as Russian air defense systems intercepted and took down 10 airborne targets near Belgorod as they approached the city. Well, Belgorod's southern streets were strewn with metal debris and damaged cars on Friday. Russia reported 25 civilian casualties, including 5 children, from attacks last weekend. Meanwhile, Ukraine has claimed to have successfully thwarted 21 out of 29 drone assaults launched by Russia overnight. The downing of these drones occurred across 6 regions across the southern, central and western parts of Ukraine. Well, moving on, migrants trapped in southern Mexico reported on Thursday that officials have dispersed the caravan they were travelling in that was headed towards the United States. The 4,000-person caravan was travelling through southern Mexico. Leaders said migration authorities had promised to provide travel permits if the caravan was split up to be processed at several migration centres. However, the caravan's leader said that some migrants had been abandoned on the street by authorities and had not been let into shelters. Well, that's it from me here in Washington. Back to you in the studio, Shabendu.
Caroline, thank you for those updates. And we're heading for a short break, still to come on DD India Global. Bangladesh set to hold national elections on January 7th. The campaigning concluded on Friday. Finland is experiencing bitter cold. Watch amazing visuals of boiling water turning into an arc of snow.
We bring to you the legendary city of Ayodhya and tell you what makes Ayodhya everything that has got to do with the land of Lord Ram.
यहाँ रग रग में हर जगह राम ही है। सनातन धर्म के लिए तो गौरव की बात है। कण कण में भी भगवान राम की सत्ता का एहसास हमें होता है यदि हम लोग ध्यान से उसका अवलोकन करें। आज भी होता है।
This is 10th century old Hanumangadi temple.
यहाँ हनुमान जी महाराज राजा के रूप में बैठे हैं। भारत की संस्कार, संस्कृति मठ से, मंदिर से, साधु से, संत से, ऋषि से, मुनि से, महात्मा से जुड़ा हुआ है।
ये विष्णु का मस्तक है, तो यहाँ पे हर कण पावन है। यहाँ
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Relations between the two Koreas are at one of their lowest points in decades. On Friday, South Korea conducted a live fire drill after North fired more than 200 artillery rounds near a disputed sea boundary between the two countries. Seoul held Pyongyang responsible for the escalating tensions on the peninsula and warned it will have to pay the price for its misadventure.
North Korea on Friday fired more than 200 rounds of artillery shells into the sea near a tense maritime border. The shells landed north of the northern limit line, the de facto sea boundary between the two Koreas, and towards 2 South Korean islands. However, no casualties were reported.
North Korean military fired more than 200 artillery shells from Jangspan Cape north of Bangyong Island and Donsan Cape north of Yopang Island. There is no damage to our people and the military, and the shells splashed into the north of the northern limit line.
Seoul warned North Korea and responded with live fire drill of heavy-duty weapons in Yongpyong Island.
We sternly warn North Korea that they are fully responsible for this escalation of the crisis, and we strongly urge them to stop it. Our military is tracking and monitoring related situations in close cooperation with the US and the South Korea, and will implement measures in response to the North Korea's provocation.
Situated in the Yellow Sea, Yonpyong Island is home to over 2,000 residents and troops stationed there. The exchange led residents of 2 remote South Korean islands on the western maritime frontier to evacuate to bomb shelters at the instruction of the South military.
I think people have to be certainly informed of the reason why we have to evacuate and how and where to evacuate, since we do not generally know where evacuation shelters or bunkers are at.
The waters near the disputed NLL have been the site of several deadly clashes between the North and South Korea, including battles involving warships and the sinking of a South Korean corvette in 2010 by what is believed to be a North Korean torpedo, killing 46 sailors. Bureau Report, DD India.
Campaigning for the 7th January elections in Bangladesh ends on Friday. Polling in 299 constituencies will take place from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. local time on Sunday. Bangladesh government has imposed a 24-hour ban on taxi cabs, pickup vans, microbuses and trucks. The ban will come into effect from Saturday midnight on the eve of the election. And Taiwan is all set for presidential and legislative elections that is scheduled for January 13th. Elections are taking place against a backdrop of increased pressure from China as Beijing seeks to bolster its sovereignty claims. Ahead of the elections, China has begun increasing pressure on the island, reiterating that reunification with China is inevitable. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. Quake hit Japan will tap around $33 million of budget reserves to cover the damages. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said that his cabinet will approve the emergency funding next week. Japan will also work with the United States military to intensify the earthquake relief operations. Rescuers have pressed on in a search for survivors as three-day survival window ended on Thursday afternoon. A 4-alarm fire broke out at New Jersey warehouse early on Friday, sending a large smoke plume over the city of Elizabeth. The blaze burned through a large industrial complex that houses multiple businesses. No injuries were reported. Britain woke up to major flooding in the Midlands region on Friday as the country was battered by heavy rains overnight. Nottinghamshire County declared a major incident on Thursday due to rising water levels along the River Trent following Storm Henk, which passed on Tuesday. Finland is experiencing an exceptionally cold start to the year, with temperatures ranging from -15 degrees Celsius to -40, putting pressure on the country's power grid. Meanwhile, in the visuals you can see a local Finnish filmed boiling water turning into an arc of snow after thrown in air to snow. Back home, the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra is being undertaken across the country with the aim to inform people about the government welfare measures by ensuring that their benefits reach the targeted beneficiaries in a time-bound manner. In a short span of 50 days, over 100 million people have participated in this yatra. The yatra has reached India's Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. The IEC van arrived in the Banihal town, where the local communities welcomed it with great enthusiasm. On the occasion, several beneficiaries shared their progressive stories under the segment Meri Kahani, Meri Zubani. India has seen a massive repatriation of artifacts in the last 10 years under the government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. As many as 344 Indian artifacts, including cultural antiquities and figurines stolen over centuries, were retrieved from foreign countries between this period 2014 to 23. This is a notable increase compared to the period from 1976 to 2013, when only 13 artifacts were brought back to India. At least 31 artifacts retrieved from Australia, Singapore, the UK and the US belong to southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu. The artifacts hold deep cultural significance, with figurines related to Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainism. The Reserve Bank of India today auctioned government bonds worth $4.1 billion. The auction was conducted using uniform price method for 7.32% government security 2030, 7.18% government security 2037 and multiple price method for 7.25% government security 2063. Reserve Bank of India has asked both competitive and non-competitive bids for the auction, and they were submitted in electronic format on the RBI core banking solution EcoBear system. While global economy proved more resilient than expected in 2023, global GDP growth is set to witness a slight slump this year. Weakening global trade, high borrowing cost, elevated public debt, persistently low investment and mounting geopolitical tensions put global growth at risk. According to United Nations World Economic Situation and Prospects report, despite such trends, India will remain the fastest growing economy in the world. Jessica Taneja spoke with Professor Nagesh Kumar, Director of Institute for Studies in Industrial Development.
The United Nations has released the World Economic Situation and Prospects report of 2024. We're joined by Professor Nagesh Kumar to discuss more on this. Professor Kumar, thank you for joining DD India. India could look at, infrastructure development and more investments and an FDI increase. How sustainable do you think the current policies would be to achieve those targets?
There is a consensus about Indian economy doing 7% for the current year, 23-24. Now, about future of the sustaining the momentum in the future, I think the prospects look very, robust and optimistic, because of the infrastructure boom that the government kind of unleashed in the last budget, with the 10 trillion rupees investment target on infrastructure spending.
In the last 6-7 months, there have been concerns about China exporting deflation. How is that going to be tackled, especially, and how India is going to shield itself from that, while there are global concerns around it still?
China's slowdown, I don't see it affecting India much, because India is a big market for China, but China is not a big market for India. So the trade deficit, the $100 billion bilateral trade is 80 billion exports to India. So Indian slowdown would affect China, not the vice versa.
And India ranks 4th in the world in cutting-edge military drone technology. There has been a consistent push by Modi government for Made in India UAVs and innovation that aims to make India the drone hub by 2030. Our correspondent Nandita Dagar reports.
India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh inaugurated a mega drone show at the Hindon Air Base near Delhi in September last year. The Indian Air Force joined forces with the Drone Federation of India to host the much-anticipated Bharat Drone Shakti 2023 event. This was a showcase of the technological prowess and testament to India's resolve to establish itself as a global drone hub by 2030. India is at the forefront of drone technology, fostering innovation and bolstering capabilities in both civil and defense applications. The Indian Air Force has been a pioneer in integrating drone technology into its operations. The remotely piloted aircraft, or RPA, has become indispensable for intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance operations. India ranks 4th in the world in terms of drone technology. Last month, the DRDO carried out a flight test of Swift, a stealth wing technology demonstrator that looks similar to the deadly US B-2 bomber jet in Chitradurga in Karnataka. The Swift is a prototype or scaled-down version of the upcoming unmanned combat aerial vehicle, or Ghatak. The Indian Army, under its Make in India initiative, signed a contract to purchase more than 450 completely indigenous Nagastra 1 loitering drones. Drone capabilities have been well established in recent conflicts worldwide, like the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. In New Delhi, this is Nandita Dagar for DD India.
India's national highways play an important role in the economic and social development of the country by enabling efficient movement of freight and passengers and improving access to markets. Road and Highways Ministry undertook multiple initiatives in the last 9 years to augment the capacity of national highway infrastructure in the country. In comparison to the year 2013-14, there has been an increase of almost 60% in the number of national highways in 2023. 4-lane road network has also increased by 2.5 times. Road Transport Secretary Anurag Jain said Delhi-Mumbai Expressway will be completed by 2024.
पर मिनिमम 2-लेन रोड जो है, पहले हमारे पास जब 91,000 किलोमीटर थी रोड 2014 में, उसमें 31%, 27,000 किलोमीटर वाज लेस देन 2 लेन, मतलब 1 लेन या 1.5 लेन की सड़क थी। वो आज 1,46,000 किलोमीटर में कम होके 14,800, 10% रह गई है। मतलब 31% से केवल 10% रह गई लेस देन 2 लेन रोड। ज़्यादातर लेन सड़कें हमारी अब जो हैं 2 लेन एंड अबव हो गई।
Automobile enthusiasts gathered in India's southern Coimbatore city on Friday to witness a collection of vintage cars. Over 40 classic beauties, including vintage models of Morris Minor, Rolls-Royce, Chevrolet, Austin and Jaguar were some of the cars that participated in the event, which made a debut in the coastal city. What a treat there for car lovers. That's all for this edition of DD India Global. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also find us online at ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Global. Namaskar.